Nick, thanks very much for joining us. It would be interesting to get your perspective. Obviously, alongside Savills and Analytiqa, you've just done a census, European census on logistics. I suppose, what were the key takeaways for you, particularly as an investor?
Thank you, Richard. Yes, we're delighted to announce the first census that we've put together with Savills and Analytiqa, and I think that there were some really interesting findings that have come out of it. I think in particular, it's a real reinforcement of what we are seeing as investors when we are traveling around Europe and visit and seeing properties, liaising with tenants and really understanding what they're doing. This data is really demonstrating that, and I think that from the occupier side in particular, just seeing where their stresses and strains are and what's important to them has proved to be really important, and some very interesting output here about locational preferences, about what size buildings they're looking for, and then some of the softer things like the ESG side of things as well is proving to be very interesting insight for us. And for us as investors, this is very important because it allows us a much better insight and also a broader, wider ranging insight. Bear in mind, we had over 100 occupiers contributing to this survey, and that really is a significant number. And so that intelligence that we're gathering from that is very important to us, and it really reinforces our investment strategy of focusing on very much the top quality logistics locations across Europe, focusing on very high quality buildings that have got very high ESG credentials, future-proofing them effectively, and providing to occupiers what they really want, which is large, well-configured buildings able to accept automation in the best locations all across the prime markets of Europe.
And there was a lot of focus in the sort of forward-looking side. Nick, I suppose, what were some of the key things from that? I mean, there was a lot of focus on lack of product, a more competitive market, those kinds of things. What was your take on that? And I suppose, how does that inform your strategy going forward?
Well, look, you're right, Richard, that the competition in the market is intense at the moment, whether that's from the investment side or whether it's on the occupier side. And we heard from GXO about the pressures that they're facing in the markets at the moment. And we're hearing this across the board in Europe. And it's the pressure on land that is really no longer there for developers to build out new buildings to meet the demand from the occupiers. And this is really driven, the occupier demand, not only by the online retailing piece, which is still very, very important, but it's somewhat old news. And that continues. That is going to continue. It will continue to grow into the foreseeable future. But it's also more of this supply chain resilience that we're hearing more about. And we heard about this in the survey about the shocks to supply chain, making sure that inventory is held closer to users, to end users, whether they be customers, whether they be manufacturers, or indeed government. And so from that perspective, it was very interesting, enabling us to really, I suppose, again, it reinforces what we have been doing for a while now, and that is focusing on population centres, very strong infrastructure connections, and also having buildings that are fit for purpose for the modern age. And by that, we mean able to accept automation, so that's good data connectivity, good power. They need resilient power supplies. And also very high ESG credentials, not only energy saving measures, but also the social side of things, making these buildings good places to work. Staff retention and employment levels was another a theme that came through in the survey, that finding employees and retaining employees is a vital thing, and having very, very high quality modern buildings that are good places to work is essential in this day and age. So what we are doing when we're looking forward is making sure that we are positioning our portfolio in such a way that it meets all of those requirements. And so and that's what we're doing, and that really just helps us in determining our future strategy.
Yeah, I think that it's really interesting, that area around kind of social impact and ESG and how that's really driving forward now. Thanks very much for joining us, Nick.
Thank you very much, Richard.